Hello everyone, I'm Craig and this is Running Cafe. I hope you're doing well and you're smashing your running. Now before we get into the topic of today's video, a quick update on my journey of returning to running after having 8 months off in 2024. To summarise the journey so far, there's been lots of ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster. So to summarise, I started at the start of December. I immediately got injured. Then I eventually got better at the end of December and I started running again. It was going really smooth until mid-February when I stubbed my toe really bad to the point where I couldn't even walk. And now, within the last week or so, I've been running again and I've finally done a week of more than 40 miles, which was what I was comfortably doing before when I was faster and fitter. So it definitely feels like I'm on the right track. So the topic of today's video, my checklist for running marathons and ultramarathons far from home, including abroad. One of the best things about running is that there's so many fantastic races out there that we can enter and take part in. And what's really good is that it gives us a fantastic opportunity to venture far from home and take part in races in places that we may not have visited otherwise. So personally, I've done a few events away from home. I've done the Mozart 100k in Austria, the Paris Marathon in France, I've done the Manchester Marathon in Manchester, England, and I've done Ultra Trail Snowdonia in Wales. And I now feel like I've got a checklist for things which I always make sure are in place before I set off on my journey, ready to take part in a race far away from my local area. A lot of these things are probably common sense, but I feel like it's useful to share because I've been caught out a few times and I feel like from my own experiences, it may help other people. Number one, race selection and course analysis. So before you actually decide to book a race far from home and venture on the journey of traveling to that race and taking part, it's always a good idea to research races in detail. Make sure that the race you select is in line with your goals, ambitions, and what you want to achieve as a runner. Make sure that it's a race that you can actually realistically achieve. So for example, if it's an ultramarathon, check the elevation gain, check what the conditions might be like. Maybe you can watch videos of other runners taking on the race throughout the years, and that will put you in a good stead as to whether or not you decide to enter into that race. And the reason I mention this is because traveling far to do a race from home can seem a bit daunting, particularly if you haven't done it before. And in my own case, I did some of these faraway races completely solo. So I traveled to Austria on my own, I traveled to Wales on my own, and I took part in those races without any loved ones or family to support. So selecting a race that you know you'll be able to complete, selecting a race that you've researched a bit, you know a bit about the course before you enter it, that's really good for your confidence, your motivation. I think this one's particularly important because if for whatever reason you need to drop out of a race closer to home, it's quite tempting to ring a loved one to come and pick you up. But if you're abroad, for example, you may not have that luxury and you may just have to hobble to the next aid station to get help from the volunteers and the race team. So race selection and course analysis is absolutely crucial in my opinion. Number two is travel arrangements. So it goes without saying that if you're doing a race far from home, you need to arrange the travel. So you may be traveling in a car and driving yourself, or someone else may be driving you. Maybe you'll be getting a train, or like myself when I went to Austria and France to do those races, you may actually be getting on an aeroplane. So research flights, try and find a good deal, make sure you get the right airports when you're traveling. And also if you're traveling abroad, check if there's any restrictions on the equipment you can take in the plane. So for example, on the UK website, it states that you're not allowed to take running poles in your carry-on hand luggage, but you are permitted to take them in the hold luggage. That's just something to bear in mind because it could add to the cost of a flight if you're planning to just go somewhere for a few days. Also, if you are traveling by plane or by train, make sure you consider transfers from your airport or train station that you're arriving at to your accommodation near the race. Number three is insurance. This isn't the funnest topic in the world, but it's really important to mention. So if you're traveling by car, obviously you're going to need car insurance. I would highly recommend getting travel insurance anyway, regardless of where you're going, particularly if you're going abroad. And also if you're doing a mountain or a extreme kind of trail race in another country, then I would highly recommend looking into specific extreme sports insurance. So there are some companies which offer this kind of package and they will guarantee to cover your costs in the instance that you need things like helicopter recovery on a mountainside, for example, emergency travel costs, medical care, things like that. Make sure you read the insurance details and match it to the race that you're doing so that you know that you're covered in the eventuality that something goes wrong. But fingers crossed it doesn't, and it's all plain sailing for you and your race. Number 4 is to book accommodation. So it goes without saying, always try and book accommodation as close to the race start as possible. Also, read the reviews of the accommodation before you actually book. So I learnt this the hard way when I went to Australia and did the Mozart 100K. I booked a hotel which I thought was a fantastic deal. It was really cheap, really close to the race village. But when I got there, my hotel room was opposite lots of other hotel balconies, and there were loads of people partying, shouting, screaming, drinking alcohol at all times of the night. And from memory, I think I got about 3 hours sleep because everyone was just shouting so loud. So had I actually read the reviews on the website beforehand, I would have known that that wasn't actually the most appropriate hotel, despite it being close to the race village. So a little bit of research always goes a long way when you're booking accommodation. In addition, you may want to research the local area just to see if there's any nice places to get food. So if there's any supermarkets nearby. If you're in the area for a while, maybe you want to see if there's any shopping centres just for a bit of leisure time. Things like that, just get a feel for what the accommodation is and what it has to offer. Next is gear check and preparation. So I would highly recommend creating a standard checklist for the gear that you'll need for your particular race. Oftentimes, ultramarathons will have a pretty rigorous standard kit list, so you'll have a list guiding you from the race organisers, but this isn't always the case. So make sure that you have every single item that you'll need, make sure that it's all packed nice and securely, and make sure that it fits with any travel storage limitations that you may face. So that could be on a plane where you've got a certain weight restriction, or if you're travelling with other people in the car, make sure that it all fits. And whilst this one may seem pretty obvious and like common sense, believe me, the last thing you want is to rock up to a race location far away from your home to find that you've forgotten a crucial piece of race equipment that you were relying on during the race. So just check again, and then check once more, just for your own peace of mind. Next is to consider the logistics in terms of timing. So I would always recommend that if you're going to do a race fairly close to you, trying to get there at least 1 or 2 days before to give you time to settle in, and also to give you time to do things like pick up a race bib if that's something that you need to do. But if you're going further afield, so for example, if you're traveling from the UK to Australia to do a race, then I'll definitely give yourself more time to settle into the local time zone, to get over any jet lag, and to make sure that you're feeling comfortable and ready for race day. After all, you've put in all the training. The last thing you want to do is rock up exhausted on the start line and not being or feeling at your very best. This one hits home for me. So when I did the Mozart 100, I decided to travel 2 days early to Austria to settle in, to give myself time to pick up my race number and to explore the local city. However, the flight was delayed. I had to spend a night in Munich, Germany, unfortunately on the way. And when I got there the next day, it was a bit of a mad rush and I couldn't really relax. So in the future, I'm probably going to give myself an extra day just in case that happens again. It's quite rare that that happens, but I always think it's better to be safe than sorry. And finally, it's always a good idea to research the local area for some tourism. So if you're going to a particularly famous city like Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, for example, there's bound to be tons of famous sites that you can explore. Get your tourism hat on, go for a wander, see what you can find. It's always nice to explore local sites, soak up some of the local culture, and you can treat it as a bit of a holiday in addition to having done a fantastic race. There you have it. There were the key things on my checklist for running marathons and ultramarathons far away from home, including abroad. Are there any other things that you include on your checklist that you deem essential? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd be really grateful to hear them. Thanks very much for watching. I've been Craig, this is Running Cafe, and I'll see you in the next one.